guys, it's Kirk from P5 Maker's Place. I just want to take a couple of minutes and do a really quick video on a way to finish your shop projects, maybe even furniture. So there's a lot of confusion about what to put on as far as top coats, protect what you just built. And I found out a couple of things I want to share with you that I think will make it a lot easier for you to get a finish on something and keep it looking good. So for me, it's always a go-to for either water-based polyurethane, which is on the far side over here, or my preferred method is just to go ahead and shoot lacquer. I love shooting lacquer. A lot of people don't like it because they don't understand it. There's some confusion about it, but it's got far more benefits on the upside than it does on the downside. So let's just talk about this for a second. Water-based polyurethane is pretty simple. You can shoot it through a gun, you can brush it, but of course the problem is the water. So if you put water on wood, we all know what happens. That grain is going to stand on end. And with water-based poly, once you put it on, you got to sand it down, and then you put it on again, and you still have to sand it, and maybe by the third coat or so, it starts to get a little smoother. Lacquer, on the other hand, has some gigantic advantages. And the big advantage for lacquer is that once you spray your first coat, don't touch it. Then spray your second coat, and the second coat actually will melt into the first coat. So that helps a lot with what's happening with the grain underneath and the rough stuff, either in the air or maybe a little graininess, etc. On that second coat, after you put it down, you want to go over it with a sanding sponge, and I mean just wipe it down with a sanding sponge. And you really don't even need to clean off the excess material like you do with water-based polyurethane, because the next coat's just going to blend it in. It's just going to melt it right into the finish. So that's one of the gigantic advantages for lacquer. Of course, another advantage is that it dries unbelievably fast. So I've been working on this fence system for my cut station back here, and I had 3 of the fences stained up, ready to go. I put the first coat of lacquer on yesterday morning at 8. 2 more coats were on by 10 o'clock. 2 hours later, I had them back in here putting in the T-track and stuff. So it really is that fast, and it's got a great finish. The third maybe advantage of lacquer, and I really like this, is that it has a tendency to highlight grain. And I'm just going to flip this camera around just really, really fast so you can take a look at what happened here to this clamp rack. Now, this clamp rack was made with unbelievably cheap wood. This is aspen, and aspen, for anybody that's worked with it, is going to quickly tell you that it is really kind of a cruddy wood to build shop projects out of. But let's face it, it's cheap and readily available. So I'll use it for things like this clamp rack. And of course, you can see where I've shot this with lacquer, what that does to that grain down there. It really highlights it, and I like that look. It's kind of cool looking. So you get that with lacquer. That's just one of the big pluses of having that type of finish. And in order to spray this stuff, let's just go over a couple of things that you need to know, and a special kind of super secret recipe that will work really well. I mean, if you just follow this recipe, it's going to work. So basically, to shoot your lacquer, if you're not going to get pre-catalyzed, which you probably won't, you can go down to any of the home centers now and buy Watco lacquer. And this is technically brushing lacquer. All that means is that it's thick. So you can use a brush with this, which means we can cut it a little more with lacquer thinner to spray it through a gun. For those fences back there, just to make sure it would work, so I could kind of share this information, I intentionally shot it with the infamous Harbor Freight purple gun. So right now, if you go back to YouTube and say, hey, type in Harbor Freight purple gun, there'll be 750,000 vids on this and what you should do to them and mods, all this stuff. The bottom line is these guns are super, super cheap. I think I paid 10 bucks for this on sale, and regularly they're maybe 15 bucks. So a lot of people are so cheap, a lot of people don't even clean them, they just throw them away. So basically, you can buy a cheap HVLP gun from Harbor Freight. This is just a gun stand, And I think I got this one on Amazon, but Harbor Freight has a version of this too. That's about 10 bucks. You're going to need these. These are paint cup mixers. These are really important. And you can buy these. I saw them at the home center. They had a package of like 3 of them, but I wouldn't do that. What I would do would buy maybe a box like this. These are still super cheap. These are from TCP Global. And these are the 16-ounce version. You get 100 of those cups and 12 lids. And I want to say I paid 30 bucks for them. But 100 of these will last me for 3 years. So they're super cheap. You also are going to need lacquer thinner. Of course, gallon of lacquer thinner you can get at any home center. And then the one thing you can't get at the home centers is retarder. And this is very, very important. So this is one of those trips you make up to whatever your local paint store is that sells just paint and just say, hey, I need a gallon of retarder. And they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. This can I've had for 2 years, and I've probably used that much in 2 years. So it's kind of a lifetime buy, once and done. It's not that expensive. I want to say I spent 20 bucks on a gallon of retarder too. So now we have these ingredients. Do we really need anything else? The only other things you really need are, you're going to want to get nitrile gloves. Don't get rubber or plastic, because this stuff right here, this lacquer thinner, is nasty. It'll melt right through those gloves. So nitrile gloves have a lot of chemical resistance. You can get these at Harbor Freight too. They're cheap. I think these are 10 bucks now a box or less. Definitely, you're going to want a respirator. And most of the cartridges that are sold with the respirators off the shelf will be plenty good enough for the aroma of lacquer. This stuff is stout. Then of course you're going to need a paint strainer, and these are also by TCP Global. They've got a little mesh in the bottom of them, and you just drop that in here, mix up your lacquer and components, and then run it through the strainer, and then you're pretty much gun ready, good to go. So the mixture for this, and I'm going to put this in the description below. I'm just going to write it down, what I use. I know that this mixture will give you good results. You may end up tweaking this a little bit depending on where you're at. I'm in the Midwest, and holy buckets, the humidity here in the summer, all summer, is like 80%. So I put retarder in with this lacquer because the retarder slows down the drying time. And by slowing down the drying time in high humidity, it actually does 2 things. In high humidity, it lets the moisture that's on the surface of the wood dry off, but it also allows the lacquer more time to, what I was talking about before, melt into the finish that's on from the previous coat. So this retarder is super important. So what we're going to do is this. Let's just say you need about a half of this 16-ounce cup of fluid. And it doesn't matter if you don't have enough. If you don't, it takes you 2 seconds to mix some more. So you're going to dump your lacquer in, and you're going to use the 4, you can't really see this, maybe I can move up. You're going to use the 4-1-1 column. That just means that there's going to be 4 parts lacquer and 1 part of the next product and 1 part of the next product. Now for us, we're not going to use the 3rd column. All we're going to use is the 4 and the first 1. So if we filled the 4, the next column over is a 4 that's up, it's raised up a little bit. We're going to split that. We're going to put in half lacquer thinner, half retarder. Okay? Going to fill the 4 or whatever number you want, depending on how much stuff you need, how much product you need to spray. But let's just say you're going to do half this 16-ounce vessel, right? So you're going to go to the 4 column, 4 parts of actual lacquer. 1 part is going to be split 50-50. Half that 1 part retarder, half of lacquer thinner. I'm going to stir it up. Strainer goes in, dump this on top, wipe this out because we can keep using this until we're done with our product. And you're going to go ahead and go to spray. One other thing you need too is an air regulator, and I've taken mine off. But if you put a regulator on here and you don't want to mess with your air compressor, the air regulator you can turn down, and you want to keep your air regulator about 30 psi when you pull down on the trigger. So they make these little regulators. You can get them too on Amazon. With all this paint stuff, it's all right in the same place. You can get them at Harbor Freight. You can get them anywhere. It's just a little tiny regulator, and you want to pull down the trigger, watch that gauge drop, and then adjust it to about 30 psi. That's about, it's a middle of the road pressure. You'll get good results with it. Okay. The only other thing you really need to be careful of is moisture. So if you have any kind of moisture traps at all on your air compressor, that's great. That'll keep the water out of this finish. There's it's a term that's often used in the painting industry called fisheye. Fisheye happens if there's a whole bunch of water that gets mixed in with the lacquer and gets shot on the finish. Of course, water and lacquer don't mix, so it'll leave a little round circle, and you don't want that. So if you don't have a way to get the water out of the air with the compressor that you have, once again, when you get all your paint supplies, you can get these little screw-on, they're little water resistor filters, and that will keep enough of the water out of the air so you can have a nice finish. So that's it. I mean, that's about all you need to know to be a semi-professional to shoot this stuff. And again, I think the benefits of lacquer far outweigh the double Debbie negative, which is it stinks. The stuff is noxious. So I've shot before in our garage, which is right next to the kitchen, and I've got kids that are hanging out in the kitchen, wife that's hanging out in the kitchen. They can't smell it in the kitchen, but they can if they come right up next to the door, the garage door. So my preferred method is just to go outside. I just put my sawhorses up right outside the garage door, and I just spray right there, and that works out great. It dries so fast you don't have to worry about anything getting it, into the finish. So this is just a quick video. I wanted to give you a general overview in how easy it really is to spray lacquer. And again, I don't know what the deal is. I watch people on their channels, and they're talking about great pieces that they make and all this, and they kind of hit a wall when it comes to finish. I think partially because there's so many brush type products, whether it's oil-based poly or Varathane or whatever the case may be, that I don't think a lot of people have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how easy it is to try to dial in something that works, and it works very, very well. So for me, it's all about speed and efficiency. I don't have time to come back and come back and come back. I've got it just like yesterday. I got my stuff out. I have all my paint equipment on my assembly bench. I'm spraying at 8, and I'm done. It's cleaned up, finished, and I'm continuing the build at 10 o'clock. So anyway, that's it. Again, just a quick video. And if you have any questions about this, leave comments. I'll be happy to jump in and tell you what I know and try to share some experience. So that's it. Coming to you from P5 from Maker's Place. See ya.